right, so I get asked all the time how I started my journey. Man, we gotta rewind back to probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago when I was back in high school. And I used to sell shoe cleaner at the mall. When I was doing this, it kind of like opened up my mind and opened up my visions as to where I actually wanted to go in my life. And it rerouted my whole college mentality. Back in the day, we were selling shoe cleaner. I was one of those guys where you're at the mall and they would say, hey, you know, let me check you out for the shoes. And they would try to like clean your shoes and then sell you some shoe cleaner, and you'd probably walk by them, you know, pretend that you were on the phone. And that's what I did starting at age like 16, 17 years old. And I actually was pretty good at it. I made around $1,000 a week at high school, which back then I thought I was balling. I'm like, holy smokes, this is the best thing in the world. And that's what kind of introduced me to commission sales. When I was about to graduate in high school, I wanted to always open up franchises. So Jersey Mike's, the sub shop. I always knew I wanted to like be some form of an entrepreneur, and I didn't want to have a boss. That was like the biggest thing. I knew that from the jump. I'm like, I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to have someone that I have to kind of like respond to. And I knew I wanted to build something for myself. And I just knew that shoe cleaner wasn't gonna be my avenue or the vehicle that was gonna get me to where I wanted to go to have enough income to be able to buy my first Jersey Mike's. I knew I needed around $250,000, about $300,000 in order to buy and open up my first Jersey Mike's. When I was at the booth, everyone always saw me hustling, selling shoe cleaner. I would always get job offers. I would get job offers from solar guys, pest control. I got all types of insurance companies. I got financial sale. I got everything under the sun. The day before college started, and I was 18 years old, I was living at my grandparents' house, and I was looking at social media, and I was seeing all my friends, and they were all going off to college. They were living on their own. They were going out to parties. And I was sitting at home at my grandparents' house, and I'm like, okay, man, I'm selling shoe cleaner, living at my grandma and grandpa's house, and these people are all kind of accelerating their lives. And I kind of fell into that trap, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna enroll. I'm gonna just kind of see what happens. So I enrolled into college the day before it started, packed up all my stuff, threw it into a U-Haul, drove down, moved into my college dorm, and I lasted no more than 3 days before I realized I was wasting my time. I'm like, okay, I always knew I didn't want to be an employee. I always knew I didn't want to, you know, have a 9-to-5, and I knew that college was just the precursor to being an employee. It prepares you to work a 9-to-5. So I dropped out, you know, no more than 3 days after, and I started to look for different options to be able to get the income and the revenue to buy my first Jersey Mike's. So I laid out all the business cards on my dorm floor. I researched, I called every single one of them. There's probably like 50, I still have a picture. Did the research with every single one of them, and I landed with AIL and started off, by the grace of God, someone took a gamble on my punk 18-year-old self, and I started to pursue a position in sales. When I started out, my first 12 months was super rocky. Back in the day, this entire thing started out in an in-person basis. So, you know, the union members will return the note cards. We'll call them, go into the office at like 9 a.m. on a Monday. We'll call all of those leads, those warm to hot leads that we received, and set them for Tuesday and Wednesday. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, we would have to drive out into the field, no matter where those leads were located, whether that was in the hills of Kentucky, in Wisconsin, in you know, Michigan, all across the country, and we would have to go and sit down at these clients' houses, sit down at their kitchen table, close them on the importance of being financially protected. So my entire first year, I was living in like Motel 6s, because like our areas that we run, they aren't just down the street from your neighborhood. They're, like I said, they're in Kentucky, they're in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, they're all around the country. So we would have to go, you know, buy Motel 6s on our own dollar, and work out there for months on end and try to, you know, drop business, try to close deals. So that was very difficult for me when I was an 18-year-old kid, when, like I said, all my friends and were out having fun and enjoying their life and living in college. And I just always kept thinking to myself, like, man, I hope this thing all pans out. I hope it pays off. Like one day, all this sacrifice, I could be in parties, I could be in college right now, but I hope it just all pans out. Instead, I'm in the hills of Kentucky in a Motel 6, getting told to F off all day by Joe and Mary. I always looked for a different and easier route to get me to where I wanted to go. Man, I expressed all my options. I looked into real estate, I looked into day trading, I looked into drop shipping, e-commerce, just about every avenue that you could really think of. I was trying it throughout my entire first year. And I was always trying to find an easier way to avoid the hard work, to avoid the sacrifice. And it only wasn't until my 13th month where I kind of looked in the mirror and I said, man, the success that you are looking so hard for is on the other side of the trials and the tribulations that you're running away from. And that alone was so powerful of, I was trying to be a hand surgeon, a foot surgeon, and I was trying to be an expert in all these different fields instead of just committing all into one avenue. And on my 13th month, when I finally made that decision, is when everything just kind of clicked and connected, and everything started to work out. I had my first $30,000 month in personal production. And it was that month when I said, hey, you know what? I'm done looking around. I'm done trying to find an easier route. And I'm gonna commit all into life insurance. I'm gonna commit all into this business. So fast forward throughout that second year of being in the business, I made my first 6 figures for that year. And that's when I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm starting to look at the people that are above me. I'm starting to see the potential. And I always aligned my goals. I knew I always wanted to be able to provide for my family. I wanted to retire my mom and my dad. I knew my significant other in the future, I didn't want them to work. I wanted them to stay at home with the kids, to be able to raise them. And I knew that would take a different level of income to get there. And I looked around in the industry and I saw individuals that were making $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month, $200,000 a month, $1 million plus a month. And I never was exposed to that level of success throughout my entire life. Grew up in a middle-class family. I was never like struggling or wondering where my next meal was coming from, but we definitely weren't wealthy. We weren't living above our means. I lived a very middle-class life, which my mom and dad, God bless them, they worked super hard to provide for what we had, but I was just never exposed to that certain level of success. So when I started to look to my left and I looked to my right and I saw, what these other individuals were doing and how much they were making, I said, you know what? Instead of trying to open up a Jersey Mike's franchise, I'm gonna go all into the financial services industry. I wanna start building my future and building my agency in the sales industry. So that's what I did. Come around about 2.5, 3 years into the deal is when COVID hit, and it fully transitioned from in-person, knocking on doors, getting stuck in ditches, getting shotguns held at my face at times, living in Motel 6s, it fully transitioned to virtual. And when it transitioned to the virtual realm that we currently live in today is when I was like, holy smokes, I need to capitalize on this opportunity. Like every single day, I'm sitting in the comfort of my own home and I'm making as much money as I possibly want, and I don't have to stand out in the cold and knock on doors and go through all this trouble. Like, I need to capitalize on this. I need to express and show this opportunity to other people on what's actually possible and what's out there. So that's when I started to grow my agency, and I decided that I wanted to step into leadership and blow up a deal. Got a house down in Virginia Beach, and I started to fly out agents, and I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get a big beach house down in Virginia Beach. I'm gonna fly out agents. I'm gonna train them up top to bottom. They're gonna be assassins and Navy SEALs in the field. They're gonna know how to close. They're gonna know how to set appointments. They're gonna know everything top to bottom. And then I'm gonna ship them back, and I'm gonna bring in new agents to train. At any given time, we had 30 plus trainees living in my personal house, sleeping on my furniture, running up the water bill and the heat bill and the electricity bill. A lot of the times I was paying for the food. And it was a super stressful time because it was the beginning of me actually growing my business. And we went through many types of challenges throughout that time. And after that full year of me trying to start and grow my agency, I ended the year with just 5 active agents. And I kind of looked in the mirror, I'm like, man, I gave everything to this. You know, I've been in this for over 3 years now. I've been constantly trying to level up and I'm still not where I want to be at. And I was basically faced with the decision to basically quit growing an agency or just become a producer and just make decent money producing. And I decided I'm gonna double down because it's always, what I learned was it's always on the other side of failure. You know, the other side of defeat is right before you're about to blow up. So anytime I knew I was encountering a failure, I knew as soon as that failure ended was exactly the point of blow up. So that's what I did. I decided to double down and we started to catch wind. We decided to catch fire, and fast forward 7, 8 years in the deal, we're one of the #1 teams out of the entire company. So we have over 250 agents. Over 65% of our sales force makes over 6 figures a year. We've made multiple millionaires throughout our agency that we've bred and brought up and developed throughout our systems. And now I'm a partner within our company. So, you know, what I just look back and see the journey that we went through, I'm just so glad. Like when I see some crucial points, if I look back at my career, I'm glad I decided to commit and I went all in. I'm definitely glad I didn't have a plan B. Like if I ever decided to go back and get a degree and go to college, I knew if when those times were tough in year 2, in year 3, maybe in year 4, as soon as, you know, hard times arose, I was gonna jump into a 9 to 5 and maybe I'd be making 100 grand a year, you know, clocking in and out, you know, for the next 50, 60 years of my life. So I was very blessed that I didn't have a plan B. I was very blessed that I committed all in. I was very blessed that I found the right group of individuals to grow the deal with. So like our leadership team is one of the top highest in the class that you could possibly have. So I'm super glad I found the right people to grow with. And overall, that's my story. You know, very blessed today, and we're gonna just keep going, and it's only the beginning, so.